Buttons have been pushed. Oh, man. All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, fellow mutants, and Shield Wall. Welcome to Roll for Effort. My name is Jason. I'm here with Chuck and Joe, two of the coolest DMs that I know and players. They are good for both sides of that hat. Tonight we are going to be talking about, we're going to be doing the DM Journal section of Roll for Effort, when we talk about games that we played in the past. And so we're going to kind of cover those real quickly, and this is for all of you out there who just don't have the time to sit down and watch a 2-hour long game every week.
And if I could jump in, it's also so us players can just kind of push those buttons on our game master from the Warp Shell Dragon campaign and dig into that noodle to find out how badly he wanted to kill us.
Well, you know, Joe, you could do that, but just remember that I don't DM all the games on the channel.
No, just the one we're currently talking about.
No, yeah,
just a foreshadowing, Joe. You might be in that seat very, very soon.
Very soon. I'm so happy about that too. I'm really looking forward to playing lots of games in 2020.
Right? Forgive my maniacal laughter.
Yeah. It's going to be the Roaring 20s all over again.
And I am mad with power.
Mad with
but
power.
Anyway.
All right, so
Warp Shell Dragon.
Yeah. So these are kind of a little bit out of order with, you know, some of the episodes may have come up that haven't been shown, but we're just gonna keep going down the line. Right. So the first game we're going to talk about is Dragon's Rest, which we did a couple of months ago, and it was a Theater of the Mind game. I ran the whole game Theater of the Mind. With some splash art that we threw up there from time to time. And it started off... Setting art. Yeah, setting art. It started off with everyone going and crashing... it started off... You came into the system, and there was Durithrax there, the Devourer, that was sort of the big reveal that had come up before, and we began a space battle that descended into the dragon. So the whole point of this, I knew I needed to take the players, and there needed to be a little bit of railroading involved, which was a problem with the game, to be honest. That they needed to get from the warp shell in space onto the surface of Durithrax.
All right. Well, I mean, you say railroad, but it was more like, I mean, we knew we were going to Durithrax anyway. That was the Devourer. That was our goal. That was like that, you know, we knew we were closing in on that climax of the whole campaign.
Yeah.
So maybe a little, I mean, I guess potentially it could have been a little like on the tracks to crash us there, but we knew ultimately that's where we were going.
Yeah. There was no railroad getting to Durithrax, in my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, we picked the point of we are going there.
Yeah, and I knew, and actually Chuck said almost the same thing, that like the crashing part felt like kind of a railroad, because it was like, this is all happening. Yeah. It doesn't matter what anyone does at this point, you are crashing.
and that's totally cool. That's a spot where, I mean, it's totally cool, because like I said, we all knew going to Durithrax the Devourer, that was our goal. That's where we were heading to begin with. Yeah.
What we didn't know is we were crashing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there were some really great key moments, player spotlight moments too, right? Mandrick got to use his engineering skills to try and keep the Warp Shell Dragon going while it was going through the crash. Chuck, you played like a major role in sort of quelling the outside forces and getting sort of stalling on the two sides so that it didn't blow up the dragon while on the way.
Right, and he totally did that by lying.
Yeah.
The pirate himself, the mad pirate himself, was both the captain of one side and the commander of the other, and the legendary Durithrax. That was bloody brilliant, sir.
Yeah. And
that's just his multiple personalities coming out all at once.
Yeah, Larry had the whole, like, he had the time shard and got to unlock the dragon so that it became corporeal so that you could land on it. Because that was a concept that I had. I was watching the movie Bird Box on Netflix. I don't know if you guys have seen it.
Yep.
No, okay, so it's a horror film, and it basically is like it's like Cthulhu as a story if it really happened. And the whole idea was that Durathrax was between dimensions, so that like part of him was like a four-dimensional being, right? Part of him was in another dimension completely, and part of him was in our dimension devouring planets and being controlled by the Psychers. So that was my vision for Durathrax, was he was basically like the monsters from Bird Box.
Real quick for the record, Bird Box was excellent. We support that. You should watch that.
Yeah.
Thanks.
It is also terrifying, so, bring a cup. You might pee yourself.
Wow.
Yeah, it was really bad. As bad as an awesome. So that was that episode. It was a crash scene. It was all theater of the mind. I don't have a lot of theater of the mind experience up front. I'm primarily a virtual tabletop DM who works in maps. To the point where I've been like forcing myself in the last few years to learn how to draw maps just so I can make the maps that I want every time that I play. And that part I felt was like a little weak, to be honest. And so it's sort of challenging myself to do more and more theater of the mind DMing so I can sort of improve those skills and those narrative skills. In fact, I've been really interested in Professor Dungeon Master's work lately, because he has a lot of instructional videos and great information through his Patreon on how to be a better narrative DM, and that's a place that I would really like to get to someday.
All right, I would also give a shout out to Be a Better Game Master. He also has a lot of good advice on being a good narrative DM.
Yeah, he does
as well. Like,
yeah,
and just to add on to that, it has nothing to do with being a better narrative DM. I think players can also do that, because that's the whole point. Like, even like Zayden and his multiple personalities, the idea is you push stuff out there, you do narrative out there, get the role playing in, and that's what's going to drive theater of mind, because it's all about role playing is what theater of the mind really is.
yeah.
yes, it is.
You as a DM control a very small percentage of what is required to make a game a really great game. Most of that is tied up in the players and the chemistry of your team. There's just no way around that.
All right, well, it's totally a table effort. It really is. I mean,
effort.
It just happens to be that the focus or the heroes of the story are the players.
Yeah.
So definitely.
All right,
and
so
that theater of the mind crash, that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was fun to run too, because it was basically like one thing after another were going wrong, to the extent, we had the question come up recently about how do you put all the pressure on without letting it, things fall apart, people running away. I mean, to me, that felt very tense, kind of falling in that.
You suck the air out of the warp shell and put everybody at air canisters that run out. That's how you up the pressure.
Yeah. And in my head, I was imagining the scene from if any of you have seen The Expanse, on Amazon, there's some scenes where the ship gets hit with projectiles, and it literally punches a hole through, and all the air is sucked out.
Yep, and they have to clear the air to restabilize the atmosphere inside. The Expanse is a fucking great show.
Yeah,
I recommend it.
Yeah,
I love that show.
And we did
Books
that.
Are great.
Yes, it is really good. I haven't seen the next season yet, so no spoilers. I did that all theater of the mind too, because I knew that I wanted to present the scale of Durathrax and the players to be in a 3D space environment, and I just couldn't really picture how to do that with art. Because if you leave things at a theater of the mind level, you're there left to imagine it, and then you'll make it as crazy as it needs to be in your own head.
Yeah, there's no terrain you could put out that would show this BC right here surpassing the horizon on all sides. You can't build that unless you just say this whole table is this tiny piece of its back, or it's one scale on the massive size.
And you guys were floating in the air and different areas of the cabin and all that, and so that would have been much more difficult to do, I think, with the map. So that game ended with the warp ship crashing on the planet. Zayden got ahead of everybody by launching himself out in an escape pod, targeting the signal that you guys had found on Durthrax, foreshadowed as being the Psyker base. I think to his to Zayden's like unhappiness, maybe you didn't land right where the signal was, though. You guys landed kind of slightly off from that. But everyone else came behind in Damien was in his fat tire driving in after you, and then Larry and Joe had jumped in one of the rovers and were driving off, and sort of that was sort of how that episode ended. So coming around to the next episode, which was Hunger and Darkness.
Yes.
Zayden gets to the ship first, kicks the door down, blows up some sort of automated sentry systems, like just grenade first, next room, grenade first, next room, grenade first.
Right, grenade first, ask questions if there's survivors.
That's how you clear a hostile environment.
Right. Now, I also do want to say, like, I particularly really liked this part when you brought us into like the ship maze, just based on the fact that we're playing sci-fi, or I guess more science fantasy, but we landed in a spaceship and we got to experience kind of like a sci-fi dungeon crawl, which was dope as hell. Like,
Yeah.
I started back in the day where it was all dungeon crawls and hex crawls, and that was awesome. And being able to experience that in a sci-fi environment where we're going through with blasters and grenades, like, that was cool. That was cool, man.
Yeah, and this we went back to using a map. But I tried to make this map extremely sparse. This isn't exactly what was there because I had added some additional elements through VDT. But I had numbered off these rooms, and part of the fun of the story that we were going to tell here was that they were all running out of air, so they pretty much had no choice but to gas up from this tainted air tank, which would send everybody on a psychedelic loop, and then you would roll a d6 and it would, or d12 or whatever it was, and you would end up in the room where that matched. And why that was cool was because you guys kicked the door down and there was a guy there, like basically a naked dude with a space helmet, who you didn't know it, but he happened to be a space cannibal. He'd eaten all of his crew here, and there were some clues hidden around the place that he had done that. And so I had like 3 different games that I had imagined when we, or really 2 different games that I imagined. One was that he would take you in, and you guys would sort of talk about the situation on the planet. And then I had lunch with Chuck, and Chuck was like, just so you know, I'm gonna blow his brains out like the first chance I get. And I was like, okay. So I need to think about more options for games.
That did not actually come to pass, though.
Yeah, well, it kind of came to pass.
No, Zayden did not, in fact, blow his brains out. Zayden cut him in half with his blasters.
Right.
There were no brains blown out. There was intestines on the ceiling. Get a mop. He blew him in half. Beautiful.
So, and this caused me. So I knew in the final areas, you guys, your power levels were ramping up so much. I knew I was going to need to start playing really dirty with my tactics. And so I went to Mordenkainen's Book of Foes, and I pulled out the Star Spawn. And I started reskinning them as the source for most of the creatures that you would face towards the end of the game. And one of them is the Mangler. He's got multiple arms. He stealths and disappears and stuff. So I had the idea that these guys were, the reason that they became the Star Spawn is that they were drinking Durthax's blood to mutate themselves. The Psykers were forcing that on people, on their slaves. And so this guy happened to have a vial of that blood. Zayden blew him in half. I made some lucky rolls, and he was able to drink some. The other option to that, if you guys had stopped him entirely, then it was going to be a siege game where you guys were in this ship, and because of the noise you had made, the Psychers were going to be invading as a force into the ship, and you're going to have to try and fight them off or do whatever you would do. I don't actually know how you solved it.
Right.
But
well,
that
we did kind of like stop him. It was just my dumbass playing like the man of peace that used the hand of resurrection and brought him back to life. Because at that point I thought like this guy might be able to help us. He knows the lay of the land, and he just wouldn't purposely hurt a fly.
Well, and you didn't know that he was a space cannibal, right? So
first time that Zayden considered shooting Bindi.
Yeah, that happened.
That was the first time. It was not be the last time.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. So that was a lot of fun. So we played a game of cat and mouse where the players would end up in random rooms, and then this Mangler would come out, attack somebody, and then immediately he had, as a reaction in the stat book, the ability to just try to drop off into stealth. So I would do that. Every time they would attack somebody, he would disappear. And I kept praying deep down as a DM that he would not jump on Zayden, because I knew that Zayden would be able to blow him in half immediately. And yeah. So
I do have to say, like, that is a brilliant place to pull the monster from and put it into here. I mean, everybody loves a unique monster, but that also applies to monsters that you are unfamiliar with. Because like I have Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes. It's a great book. It's awesome. WotC did a great job on that little supplement.
Yeah, that's one of my favorites.
Pulling that from 5th edition, from Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, and putting it into ICRPG, that's just a beautiful thing. Any GM out there watching, take that as a brilliant tip. You can pull a monster from any other source that you have and put it in your game. Just give it some stats and follow the rules from the original source material.
Yep.
Because we had no idea what was going on. We just knew that they sucked, and we dropped so many times from those horrible damn bastards.
Yeah.
Good job. Excellent stuff, man.
Yeah, it was a really fun game. And eventually you got him. You got the space cannibal. You fixed your air situation. That was one of my favorite games because it was a very deep role playing game. Like, you guys, it kind of filled the niche where the tension went down quite a bit for a while, because you were like you said, you were just dungeon crawling around this derelict spaceship.
The air part was so much fun though. Because I remember, and I think it was because I rolled a crit on my save.
Yep.
So instead of this gas that would make me go loopy, it was fine, and everybody else was having problems with it. And it provided an interaction between the players of like, why are you worried about the air? It's great. Let's keep going.
Right?
Yeah, it was good.
The pirate was immune. He was like, it just tastes a little funny, but nothing wrong. And we're all just loopy and getting lost and wandering away.
Yep.
It was great.
It was so much fun, man. And I have to give credit where credit is due real quick before we go into the next one. I built every inch of this spaceship using the Mothership Earth supplement. The Dead Planet Mothership Earth, right? Or Mothership supplement. Not Mothership Earth, sorry. Dead Planet Mothership. Every inch of the spaceship was done rolling on roll charts to put it together. Even these little ducts which connected the different rooms, which allowed the Mangler to sort of get around secretly. And no one queued on the vents. Like, all the vents were there throughout there because I put little event icons there. But yeah, these were sort of like fast travel points between different sections.
Right. You know,
all of that was randomly generated.
I did notice the vents, but I just flat out assumed that Bindi's shell would not fit, so I kind of just ignored them from a player point.
Right.
From the looking at it through the character, I was like, yeah, there's no way my Torton is fitting through there. And also, Mothership is a great game.
Yeah, Mothership's a great game. So credit where credit's due. The spaceship was totally built and inspired through that supplement. If you want to build a derelict spaceship, please go buy that supplement. It's great. And then this whole concept, many of you are probably screaming this whole time, you stole that for Professor Dungeon Master. Yes, I did. Yes, Professor Dungeon Master has an excellent video out there on running the Minotaur maze. And I was like, you know what? That is how you should run a maze. That's perfect. Rolling randomly to see where players end up. So they might be together, they might be separated, which happened throughout, right? Like, there's scenes where you were together and then all of a sudden you drifted apart again.
Right. Well, I mean, every good dungeon master, game master, like knows that if you're going to be good, you're probably going to be stealing stuff from other sources.
Yes.
Flat out.
Absolutely.
You should.
Like,
you should.
That's a tool you keep in your toolbox as a game master.
Yeah. So if anyone had wanted to see how that is run in practice, go watch our video. You'll see it run. That is how you do it. And it worked brilliantly. It was so much fun.
Indeed.
Yeah. And so after this, you guys got jumped by the Psychers that sort of forced you out of the ship. But you managed to sort of regroup. And you took stock of the situation. You made a lot of really smart choices that weren't even in any of the videos that were done kind of in the text chats. You sent the rover off to go and repair Dragon with spells and technology, giving up some loot items to do it. And then you went to the Psyker base to break into it.
But before we left this place,
we did that.
yeah, Chuck's rigged that thing to blow so that everything in there, including that damn Xeno that we found down in that bottom end, which ramped tension, like blew that all. It cratered the thing. We dented some Durthrax scales at that moment.
Yeah, you did. You totally
before
did.
It was slipping off.
Yeah. All right, and the last game we're going to talk about tonight was done on this sucker. Another map we drew. And
yes.
And you guys basically, this was actually pretty short. This was one of those games that was a little bit combat heavy, so you didn't go very far physically, but we went through a lot of fights.
Well, I mean, it was the Psyker base. It was like the folks that had been, controlling Durthrax and pushing along that path of the Devourer. I don't think any of us expected that we were just going to waltz right in.
Right. And you guys specifically decided you wanted to kick the door down.
And this is also the second place where Zayden seriously considered shooting Bindi.
Yeah, it was pretty bad. Because the Psychers, they were had mind control. One of the spells found on the Larva Mage, I think, is what I took from.
Yeah, mind control was horrendous.
Yeah, so they come in here. They all started up here when this was like a little ramp that went down into the belly of the beast, right? They entered this just sort of giant Space Hulk base. The idea of the base came from the supplements for Space Hulk. That's where the kind of the concept was. It's a bunch of spaceships shoved together, but that was really just the shell, the outside appearance. Everything inside of it was more of a streamlined, game. So you guys came in here, long hallway fight, fighting robots, aliens. Psyker mind controls Bindi. Bindi starts going around healing Psychers. Chuck nearly shoots Bindi to death. Zayden nearly shoots Bindi to death. And eventually you made it into this sort of large area here.
Right, the elevator fight.
Which is an elevator fight, right? And I was inspired by the mechs from Ghost in the Shell, right? And I was like, I wanna have a fight where they battle one of the mechs from Ghost in the Shell. So that's what that was.
That's cool.
Yeah.
It also kind of like gave me some vibes of like some Chrono Trigger vibes of fighting down through the elevator, or like Final Fantasy 3 back in the day. Like there were some awesome elements that like it was flipping my nostalgia buttons.
Yeah, it was good. I really enjoyed that because I had given you a bunch of NPCs too, and I knew that I wanted to kind of start thinning them down to make the danger feel more intense without it actually being intense. So that's the thing we missed. At the start of the adventure, all of these NPCs dropped down and joined you guys that you had encountered throughout the course of the campaign.
Right. But it still got intense because NPCs were dropping and we were dropping and slowly getting back up, and like it was a slog. It was a fight, that's for sure.
Yeah, it was. It was.
This is a note for playing with the NPCs because there was just so many of them. I think it also slowed our game down a bit.
It did a lot. I felt I had actually, so I had this original plan where, so this gets us to the next part. So you get to the bottom of the elevator, and I had kind of like with the Minotaur maze, you know, on the ship, I contrived a system where I went out and I bought a map pack of pre-dynamically lit maps that already had all the lines in place and everything for dynamic lighting, and I had like 6 of them, and I was like, all right, well, I'll have them roll 2d6s with disadvantage, and eventually they'll get to it. And that way we can have a long, drawn-out fight. I wanted you guys to feel like you had, you know, earned it, you know, to get all the way there to the end of the game. And you guys made it into, like, the very first roll, you made it into, like, one tiny hallway of this gigantic-ass map. And I had guys coming in from all sides, and I was actually using some of the tactical teams that you could roll up based from Five Torches Deep, and it was a slog.
It was a hard fight.
It
like,
was.
I mean,
yeah,
we were muscling for every inch of ground that we got in that hallway. Like it was.
I actually expected to die in that hallway. That was probably the first time as a player I thought that was where we were going to end.
Yeah.
Yep. That's it. I was right there with you. I was like, we are probably going to die here.
Right.
Now Xavier doesn't know that. He doesn't care, but
Peyton is eternal.
I definitely felt like that was going to be the last map we played on.
You know who I feel like actually turned that situation around and maybe had saved everybody? Well, it was a combination. It was Joe's support, because that got really hard fast, but it was Keldor's use of that repulsion field to divide them. That, I don't know if he realizes that he saved the bacon there, but that
was an MVP moment.
That was an MVP moment, because those monsters you were facing, they were all the Starspawn from Mordekai's book of foes, right? And the combination of their abilities is fucking lethal. Just deadly. And that's where, like you said, you know, Chuck, like you thought you were going to die. I thought you guys were going to die. I really did. So it was at the end of that. So that's actually kind of where our adventure ended for the night. And I made the snap decision. I was like, there's no way in the next couple of weeks that there's no way that we're going to do, like, you keep rolling randomly until you get to the right roll and escape. Like, that's not going to work.
Right, we'd have been dead by then.
Yeah, like, at this point in the campaign, I want it to be fair. I want for there to be the possibility to lose, but I don't want the loss to be meaningless, like a meaningless wipe at this point, because the tactics are just so insane, and I'm rolling randomly to determine what's going on, which means that it's not easy for me to control either. And so I was like, you know what? When Zane opens the door, you know, at the very last moment of the scene, on the other side is going to be the main boss, and that there'll be an opportunity for you guys to chase him down.
Right.
Yeah.
That was actually a good moment too. Like it was almost like that, you know, like, oh my God, we found somebody, we have a direction. Cause I mean, it was like tooth and nail for every little bit that we got to push down that hallway.
Yeah.
Those bad guys were so ruthless, from the guys that make everything hard to the multiple attacks to the heavy hitters. Like,
right. Yeah. But you guys earned it. Like, I felt at that point that you guys had earned it. Like, you were there and you were ready to defeat Durthrax, right? You were ready to defeat, you know, Rodzi or Littlefoot or whatever his name is in this, you know, time frame, right?
Whoever he was at that point.
Yeah, so I was like
we earned it.
I knew it right then and there that you had survived this sort of mass ambush in this long hallway once again with dynamic lighting, so you can't even really see what's coming at you all the time.
Yeah.
That this was it.
Okay, I have to say, from a player point, that was a great moment when you're talking about, like, oh, well, these guys are coming down here, and if you were a character way over here, you couldn't even see what was coming in this hallway. Only the players there could see it. It was like, oh my God, what is happening over there? I see my buddies, but I have no idea what they're looking at around that corner.
Yeah.
It's like, that was almost kind of like a pressure moment where it was like, oh shit, what is happening there?
Yeah.
I can't worry about that because I'm looking at these things around these corners coming up from this side. Like, damn.
Yep. Yep. So it was great. I really enjoyed that game. I mean, I know that it was a slog, but I felt it led up to the right amount of tension to end the campaign. Like, this has been worth it. It's, you guys did it. The next game, you have the chance to face the big bad and end the campaign, which we're going to talk about in a future video here when we do our next DM journal.
Yes, there were a lot of big things that happened in that final fight.
Right. How to end a long ass year-long campaign. That's going to be our next DM journal.
Yeah.
Yeah. So much fun. Thank you again, Chuck and Joe, for joining me tonight. I cannot tell you how much I appreciate you guys being here. It makes doing these videos possible, because it's very difficult to just talk into a camera and pretend like you're not alone in a room talking to the internet. Like a crazy person.
But we are alone in our rooms talking to the internet. We just have voices talking back to us.
Oh God, it's all coming down on me now. The walls are crashing in.
Right? Do you want to know what it is?
Brain inception. All right, so we've run a little bit long here with the video, but I guys, I thank you so much for being here tonight.
Thank you, dude. Thank you.
Yeah. All right, I'm gonna roll them
behind the
credits.
screen moments of
Good night,
what's
all.
running. Is
Good night,
great.
everybody. And as always, if you ever have any questions for any of us, for any of the people who play in this group, I mean, we all talk pretty closely, so post in the comments, and we'll disseminate and get back to you. And thank you again.
All right, like, comment, subscribe.
Yep. Bye.
Bye. Oh yeah, shameless plug.
Oh yes. Do it. Smoke.